Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. For members of the staff, anybody here in the audience, there's very many of you, but please silence your cell phones while you're here. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Orange County School Board's work session. This has been scheduled for today, Tuesday, January 27th, for the purpose of discussing targeted and consolidation of 7 of our schools. The public will not have an opportunity to participate in this work session to provide public comment because it is not a regularly scheduled school board meeting and no action will be taken. We will have a meeting next Tuesday, Rule Development Workshop on this subject, where we will be taking public comment. We have present with us Member Byrd, Member Ferrant, Member Douglas, Member Vanos, and Member Gallo. Not with us currently, but joining us soon will be Member Felder and Member Salamanca. Vice Chair Salamanca, I believe, is on the line with us. Is that correct, Member Salamanca? Member Salamanca, are you with us? All right. David, if you will let us know when she is so that I can call on her so the public knows that she is, in fact, participating. As a reminder, the board will not be engaging in outside electronics or digital communication during the meeting so that we could focus our attention on the issues before us. And to my fellow board members and district staff, please speak directly into your microphone. Obviously, make sure it's turned on. Speak and as close as you can to the microphone so that our YouTube and TV viewers can hear you clearly. Again, thank you for participating. We'll now pause for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Now for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Dr. Vasquez, I will turn the floor to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I begin, Member Salamanca is on the line. We're having technical difficulties, and they are working on it. Today's school board work session continues an important and difficult conversation about enrollment, families, and how we responsibly plan for the future of our district. Over the past several years, Orange County Public Schools has experienced sustained enrollment declines, nearly 6,000 students in the last year and more than 8,600 over the last 3 years. This is driven by factors largely outside of our control, including declining birth rates, expanded school choice, aging neighborhoods that are not turning over to new families, legislative changes allowing co-location of charter schools, as well as changes to immigration policies. These declines directly affect our ability to offer robust programs for our students, adequately staff schools, and efficiently maintain our facilities with an estimated operational reduction in revenues of more than $41 million for the 25-26 school year. In response, staff began a data-driven review of schools with significant gaps between enrollment and capacity. 7 schools were identified for potential consolidation due to long-term enrollment decline, projected future enrollment, and proximity to newer or recently renovated neighboring schools. Since November, we have taken deliberate steps to engage both the board and the community. That included community meetings at each of the schools in November to explain the data, answer questions, and gather feedback. The information was shared with you during a school board work session on December 16th at which time we were instructed to move forward with the consolidation and rezoning process. We went back to each of the schools this month and met with school staff and held combination community and rezoning meetings with parents and community members. Today's work session is not a final action. It's an opportunity for the board to review where we are in the process, understand the proposed consolidation and rezoning framework, reflect on community input received thus far, and provide direction as this process continues. With that, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Stacy Neal, who will begin the presentation.
Good morning, Chair Jacobs, Superintendent Vasquez, board members, and any and all OCPS staff out there listening. Before we start, let me introduce my staff. With me are Thomas Moore, our demographer, and Renata Parapche, Senior Administrator at Senior Student Enrollment. We are presenting 7 proposed school consolidation rezonings for consideration. Before addressing each proposal individually, we will begin with a review of the rezoning timeline. Community meetings were held on January 14th, 15th, the 21st, and 22nd. Today, January 27th, we are conducting the school board work session. A school board rule development workshop is scheduled for February 3rd at 4:30 p.m. The public hearing for these rezonings will take place on March 10th at 5:30 p.m. Community meetings were conducted at each of the schools identified for consolidation. January 14th at Union Park Middle School, January 15th at Bonneville Elementary and Orla Vista Elementary Schools, January 21st at Chickasaw and Eccleston Elementaries, and January 22nd at McCoy Elementary and Meadowwoods Elementary Schools. All rezonings, no matter how small, follow School Board Policy JC. The process begins when the superintendent officially starts the rezoning effort. Our staff then creates a timeline, meets with internal teams, conducts research, and develops possible rezoning options. Next, we share these options with the community, allowing for their input. After gathering all input, the school board reviews the options during a rural development workshop. Next, the board holds a public hearing where they vote on the rezoning plan. As the final step, we complete a rezoning notebook to record the process and board decisions. This rezoning process applies whether we rezone for a new school, a neighborhood, vacant land, or a school consolidation. To describe the scope of the rezoning, we use the terms technical, targeted, relief school, or school consolidation. For technical rezoning, there are no students involved, and the area to be moved is uninhabited land. For targeted rezoning, only selected areas are recommended to be moved, and there is usually a small group of students involved. Relief school rezoning, this is when a new school is opening and it affects a large number of students. School consolidation closes underutilized sites and it affects a large number of students. Information regarding rezoning can be found on the rezoning website at www.ocps.net. Under the School tab, you will click on School Rezoning. From there, it will take you to the rezoning currently in the works page, where you will find the rezoning timeline, community presentations, maps, data, and survey links. OCPS has in policy a grandfathered transfer to ease the rezoning process for families under certain conditions. For a student who has been rezoned by OCPS 2 or more times during the school level, that is K through 5, 6 through 8, or 9 through 12, at the current address. For a student who has been rezoned from an established school to another established school, And in this case, the student may remain at the existing school instead of being assigned to the rezoned school. For a student who will be in the 5th or 8th grade and will be rezoned to a new Relief Elementary or middle school. This policy will apply for students being rezoned from Eastlake Elementary to Columbia, Legacy Middle School to Discovery Middle School, and Odyssey Middle School to Legacy Middle School. Students may remain at the existing school instead of being assigned to the rezoned school. Parents must apply by April 30th, 2026. Please note that transportation is not provided by OCPS for students on a grandfathered transfer. Siblings may be eligible to transfer with a student who is granted the grandfathered transfer. However, sibling transfers are only valid while the grandfathered student attends the school. We offer 3 ways for families to share their input on the rezoning: an online survey, petitions, and email. You have received the survey results for each proposed school consolidation. We are currently summarizing all feedback submitted through surveys, petitions, and email. The final report will be provided before the Rule Development Workshop on February 3rd. Survey links will reopen again after the Rule Development Workshop. We will now present 7 school consolidations that would redistribute students to 17 additional schools. Together, these recommendations address under-enrollment across 24 schools. Our first rezoning is Bonneville Elementary School. This slide represents historical and projected enrollment at Bonneville Elementary School. The bars to the left of the orange bar show the last 7 years of enrollment, and the bars to the right summarize projected enrollment in the next 10 years. The orange bar shows schools' enrollment in the current year. Bonneville's current enrollment is 368, and the school's capacity is 938, which shows that the school is more than 60% under capacity. The checkered portion of the bars show how many students reside in the zone versus how many students attend. The red line labeled necessary enrollment at 680 marks the minimum number of students required to fully fund an elementary school. Current and projected enrollment fall well below this threshold. The next slide shows maps and demographic data to help illustrate the potential impact of students or on students, families, and schools. Let's start by reviewing the map to orient you with the current proposed zones. Red lines indicate current elementary school boundaries. Schools involved in the rezoning are Bonneville Elementary School, Eastlake Elementary, and Columbia Elementary School. The colored areas are the proposed zones. Purple is Eastlake and green is Columbia. The next slides will show you zoomed-in views of the areas proposed to be moved. From Bonneville to Eastlake Elementary, there are 321 elementary students residing and attending Bonneville Elementary School recommended to be moved to Eastlake Elementary School. From Eastlake Elementary School to Columbia, there are 191 students residing and attending Eastlake Elementary, recommended to be moved to Columbia Elementary. The next slide displays the demographic breakdown for each school, both before and after the rezoning. The first column shows the name of the school involved in the rezoning with the school's Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses capacity, also known as FISH. FISH capacity refers to the official number of students a school is designated to accommodate as determined by the state. This figure is maintained by district staff in the Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses. a comprehensive database that includes every room in all district-owned schools. The next column displays student enrollment from October 15, 2025, with a percentage breakdown for race as white, black, and other, and ethnicity as non-Hispanic and Hispanic. The third column shows the difference between enrollment and capacity. The fourth column displays the current number of students residing in each zone. The next column shows how many students will be residing in each zone if this rezoning takes place. The next column is FARMS, which stands for free and reduced meals. ESE stands for exceptional student education, and the percentage at each school before and after the rezoning. The last column shows ELL, which stands for English Language Learners, the percentage current and proposed. I will give you a moment to review the numbers for each school. Based on the input received during the community meeting, we have created an additional option to consider for the consolidation of Bonneville Elementary School. This option keeps the Grow development and the adjacent parcels along Chuliota Road within the Eastlake Elementary attendance zone. Next is the zoomed-in view of the proposed Eastlake zone. Number of students residing and attending Bonneville Elementary School recommended to be moved to Eastlake Elementary is 321. Here is the zoomed-in view of the proposed Columbia Elementary School zone. Number of students residing and attending Eastlake Elementary recommended to be moved to Columbia is 186. The demographic table of the additional option, and I will give you a moment to review these numbers. This table, next slide, has an overview of the enrollment history and long-term projections for each school involved in the rezoning. The top portion presents projections as status quo, and below that, you will find projection numbers for each option created. Please note, permanent fish capacity is located between current year's enrollment and next year's projections. Please take a moment to review the numbers. If approved, this rezoning will commence in August 2026. This concludes our presentation for Bonneville Elementary School's consolidation. Dr. Vasquez.
Thank you. Board members, we're now ready to hear your discussion, and we will need your consensus on which of the two options we move forward with.
About that comment about turning your mic on. Sorry about that. Member Gallo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple things that I want to discuss with Bonneville and Eastlake, and it wasn't really presented today. I'm in favor of the new option, which basically, and I've spoken to enrollment about this. So I was at the meeting. And in talking to the community and the people at the school, trying to create continuity, I like option 2 better. I think keeping all of the people up to 419 on Lake Pickett with those two communities there, the new Solace community and the Grow at Eastlake, makes more sense. While, Eastlake loves all their kids, so they don't want to lose anybody from Buffalo. They don't want to lose anybody from Corner Lakes. But when you look at the pattern and you look at where the schools go, it also doesn't make sense that they would pass by Columbia on their way to Eastlake Elementary, because it's probably about 4 or 5 miles apart. So it doesn't make sense to do that, but it does make sense to kind of clean the lines up and take it down to 419. With the first option, I was concerned that the numbers weren't representative. Like, we had Columbia that would be growing. They would get the 191 students and they would get the grow. So they had the potentially to grow in capacity where Eastlake kind of stayed flat. And to me, I felt it was an uneven distribution of students, which is why I like the new option better. I know that when you look at the projections, it then kind of shows that Eastlake is growing at a larger number, and it's kind of disproportionate with Columbia. But the grow is like over a 10-year plan. They're just now starting to sell homes. They're very expensive, so I don't know how many families were truly going to get into that neighborhood. And they're also telling the residents they're going to build a school. Well, if we don't have the capacity, and I'm telling everybody in my community, there's nothing in my 10-year SIP plan that would justify us putting a school into the grow, because we would still have room at both Eastlake and Bonneville. We have room at Corner Lake, and we have room at East River High School. That wouldn't stop them from building a charter schools, and I have heard rumblings that the developer has been talking about charter schools. Are placing a K through 12 charter school in that area, which would further erode the amount of students that we have. So I don't think that the projections will be that high for Eastlake. And if they are, then we can look at it as the grow gets built out. I've said all along that the most important thing to me is when we build these communities and we have zoned them and people are buying homes and they're taking tours of the school that they think they're going to go to, I don't like them changing that on them. I think that's when they kind of get mad and it upsets them. When we say, hey, you're zoned here. Oh, by the way, you bought the house. Now you're not zoned here. You're going to go to a different school. Although both of those schools are fabulous. I mean, Columbia and Eastlake could be twin sisters. If you wouldn't visit them, you really wouldn't know the difference between the two schools. But I do like the second plan better, as I think the grow coming to Eastlake makes more sense. Then it keeps any new grow, because there are homes that if you cross over 419 and keep going on Lake Pickett towards Christmas, there are new developments. And there's not a lot of families in there because the homes are expensive, and the homes in the grow are going to be expensive too. So as that develops, those people, and I know we don't have projections showing that, could come to Columbia. So I'm just personally in favor of option 2. I do want to discuss the ASD units and the VE pre-K units, because the amount of students that are being moved that we're talking about right now is 321. There's another 47 students that are in units that we're kind of flip-flopping around. And I want to make sure that when we're looking at that and moving those students, that it makes sense. So, for example, I think I saw, and it's not on here, so I can't speak to it, but when we were at the community meeting, we were talking about moving the VE pre-K over to Riverdale. Those students that are in the VE pre-K at Eastlake are zoned for Eastlake, and so to move them to Riverdale and then bring them back to Eastlake doesn't make much sense to me. Eastlake already, and they're already set up for the VE, so it would make more sense to me that they get the VE pre-K because they're already set up to handle the VE pre-K. They have an IND unit, and then maybe because Columbia, I think, has an ASD unit, correct me if I'm wrong, to send some of those ASD units over to Columbia. That way they get to keep the kids that they have. They can increase their VE pre-K numbers, and then we can kind of switch some of those other kids to Columbia, because I do understand that we don't want to overwhelm a school with too many different units at the school, right? We want to make sure that we have the resources provided. But it's my understanding that Columbia already has a behavioral specialist at the school, and they can handle those units. So I'm wondering if we can look into some more configurations with our students with unique abilities that are in units. And we're not really talking about it here. I'm not sure why. But I would like to see a rework up of what that looks like. Because I don't want to send Eastlake students that are zoned for Eastlake over to Riverdale and have them on a bus all the way over to Riverdale to then bring them back in kindergarten. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yes. Certainly, we'll look at that. There's a lot of factors that go into it. First and foremost, the ESC unit centers, that's not part of the rezoning process. Those
Okay.
change. Sometimes they change every year. There were factors dealing with the number of units at a school. We've tried to cap the number at 4 because schools have shared. It's a big burden. I'm sorry. It not burden, that it taxes the school and the resources when there are more than 4 units at the school. So we will look at that, but there was a lot of work that went into it. Additionally, we have several units where there's VE pre-K that they're not going to their zone school. They attend the VE pre-K at one school, and then the following year they go to their zone school. So that's not unusual here.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I know there's a lot of thought and a process and procedure that goes into it. And I understand that there's VE programs, pre-K VE programs at other schools and that aren't zoned, but Eastlake is already set up with a VE pre-K program. Like they're already doing it. They have it. They're zoned there. So in that case, why disrupt those students or those families and send them to another school then to bring them back? I'm trying to look for, I guess, continuity and to minimize the impact on other students due to the consolidation of another school. Like if any way we can limit the impact to the families that are going to the schools that we're transferring kids into, I would support, because it's like a domino effect. And so then it just impacts more students. So where we can, I would like to keep that disruption to a minimum.
We'll take a look at it, and we'll have staff bring it back.
Thank you so much. And then my other thing that I want to talk about is we talked about grandfathering in students and how if their siblings came that they would only be allowed to stay there until their older sibling left, which I understand is what we have in policy. But in these instances, I think Columbia and Bonneville, Columbia and Eastlake, even with receiving the Bonneville students, will still be in the open enrollment. So I want to make sure that we're telling families that if it's an open enrollment school, then do the open enrollment, don't do the grandfather, because then your siblings can stay there for as long as they want. It's only under the grandfather that they have to leave, but if they do it under open enrollment, then their siblings can stay through their tenure at the school. So I want to make sure that as we go through this process that we're giving parents all of the information so that they can make the best decisions possible, because in some situations a grandfather won't be the best option, especially if those siblings have to leave. But that's my opinion. I like the second option better, and I appreciate Dr. Vasquez saying that she will look into the ASD and the VE units so that we can provide as little disruption to those students as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gallo. Member Vanos.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Member Gallo. As a school board member for that area, you definitely have the expertise, so I just appreciate you sharing your opinion and recommendations, knowing that area so well. I just had a couple of general questions. Going back to the grandfather question, I noticed that when you were talking about it, you said that the student may be, you said that a sibling of a grandfathered student may be eligible. And as long as the grandfathered student is at the school, when would be a situation when the sibling would not be eligible?
That's pretty much it. If the sibling does not take advantage of remaining at the previously zoned school.
Okay. Okay,
That's-
perfect. Okay. Okay. And also concur with Member Gallo's comments, if there's any way to make it, easier for more students to just sort of stay in the school they're in and siblings, I think if we can do that, I would support that. And then the last question that I had was, you talked about that you would need 680 students in the elementary, in Bonneville to fully fund the school. I think what you mean is just that would sort of just pay for the, well, actually, can you explain what that means by saying it would fully fund the school?
I'm not sure fully fund but to meet the minimum to keep the school running. So what's the word I'm looking for? So they would meet the necessary enrollment to have the basic and not where the school board would have to supplement. They could kind of hold their own.
Okay, so full funding doesn't actually mean that the school would be fully funded in the way we would want it to be fully funded. It just means it sort of meets that basic requirement to where the number of students can sustain kind of the baseline level of the school.
Break even, yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Anybody have anything else to add? Okay, thank you. Member Front?
Thank you. Just a really minor question on, so it'd be on slide 18. Just a quick question. I know some of these maps can be tricky, and it's not my area, so, yeah, that one. Okay, do you see let's see, it'd be on the far right, how it kind of comes down and then it jets in. There's a road. I wish I could point at it. Yeah, go up go up a little more to the right and then down, just up in that area. So is that like a dead end? Or will that?
That's a development. That's a development called the Solace. It's just a new development.
Will that eventually connect to that road next to it? Or
I
is
see
that
what
like
you
a
mean.
dead end?
Let me take a look at the area.
Just curious if it would make more sense to include that in there. I know in my area that happened a couple times where then the parents were kind of frustrated that they'd have to go out and around and come back around. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Member Gallo?
So, and the Solace will stay at Eastlake under the second option, is that correct?
No, Solace is in that area. Is the exact area
below.
that
Lake Pickett. It's below Lake
yeah.
Pickett. It's below Lake Pickett.
And maybe it makes
on
more
the south
sense for
side.
these parents to just go down because it would be
So
closer to Columbia.
I'm sorry, which I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead. No, go.
So the Solace, the way it is, the entrance for that new community is off of 419, but it kind of backs up to Lake Pickett. So it's not, I know it looks like it's a dead end, but it only looks that way because there's no exit onto Lake Pickett Road. It's like 419, but it does connect.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to know. I just wanted to make sure it didn't get like fall through the cracks or something. I just noticed it. But anyways, thank you. That was all I had to say.
So I do have, Madam Chair.
Member Gallo, you're recognized.
So can we keep the Solace within Eastlake? Because I think that's only projected to have, and they've already, the only reason I'm asking is because I said earlier, they've already done tours at Eastlake Elementary, and they believe that that's going to be their school. And I still believe it's 2 miles from Columbia, so we'd still be busing those students to Columbia. It's not like those students, if they're walkers, then that'd be one thing, but I believe would have to bus them to Columbia.
And you're correct. So it is not a large development. It is only 48 units. And based on the student generation, it's 48 units, 9 elementary school students based on the student generation rate. I want to see if we have current students in here.
So since those families have already
Right.
visited Eastlake, my preference would be to keep them at Eastlake.
Okay.
Because it even though the entrance is off 419, it's on the corner of Lake Pickett and 419. And so if you're trying to make a clean line in my mind, because even with the other developments, there's no exit onto 419, but those homes go all the way north on 419. I mean, when you look at the map, the kids look like they're on North 419, but they're not. They're in that neighborhood that has access off of Lake Pickett.
Okay.
So we will take a look at it to see and bring that back, if that's okay, so that we can see if it works to add the Solace.
Okay, thank you. And I know that we've compiled the survey results from Bonneville and from Union Park middle school. So I'm just going to upfront say I'm not going to die on any hill. I want to listen to what the community has to say. And if the community is like, Gallo, I don't know what you're talking about, but this isn't what we want, then I want to truly listen to the community. But it's just in my mind and the way that it's, and my kids went to East Lake, so I know this community very, very, very well. And so I'm willing to listen to what the community has to say. So I want to say this is my preference, but after looking at the survey results, if, those could change my mind. So I just want to put that caveat out there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Member Gallo. All right. We have some direction here to go with the option number 2. And we're not going to take a vote, but if there isn't any disagreement amongst the board, we'll go forward with that one and advertise that for our rule development meeting. Thank you. With the direction of adding the solace, which makes sense to me, I zoomed in with an area.
I'm looking at staff for direction.
like you?
Is 9 going to be?
It might
it
be
should
a
be
difference
fine.
of 9 students.
Okay, so then we're good to
Yeah.
add them in. All right.
Okay. All right.
Just, can we look further into it because of the distance? Because you're absolutely correct about how they exit. But the distance going to Lake Pickett and coming down to Columbia is a little easier than going Lake Pickett up to, is that Tanner Road? Tanner Road up to the school. So 9 students, not a difference. However, we do take in consideration, traffic and transportation and distance.
We can.
I'm sorry, and I totally understand. I would argue that if you go out to Columbia and look at their traffic on how to get in and out, and then go to East Lake, and East Lake will tell you it's not pretty there either. It's not pretty at any school. I'll just be honest. I mean, it's the traffic on pickup and or drop off and dismissals. It's going to take you a few minutes to get through those lines, no more than like 10 to 20, but I'm willing to look at it. But we've been busing Buffalo to East Lake for years and years and years and years. So I don't know that 9 students going to East Lake, if they've already toured East Lake and that's where they think they're going to go, is going to make a huge difference. But again, I'm willing to listen and see what the community wants. Thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Please, Dr. Vasquez.
Where are they currently zoned?
They're not.
They're not.
Oh,
So,
I'm
East Lake.
sorry, they are East Lake.
so they are currently zoned
for
to East
East
Lake.
Lake.
So we're not. So we're not changing it.
Right. It would not, if we were to leave them in East Lake, it would not change it. But currently,
Yes.
this one as shown has them moving into Columbia. But if,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're bringing it back version 2, but we're adding this subdivision to version 2. All right.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. That's clear. No, it is. And no discussion by other board members, so we'll move forward with that amendment option 2. All right. Dr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next one is Union Park Middle School, and if you would like, instead of deferring to me, we can just go one after the other. I'm fine with that.
Oh, thank you. Ms. Mia.
Union Park Middle School's consolidation. Union Park's current enrollment is 565, and the school's capacity is 1,478, which shows that the school is 61% under capacity. Next slides will show maps and demographic data to help illustrate the potential impact on students, families, and schools. Green lines indicate middle school boundaries. Schools involved in the rezoning are Union Park Middle School, Glen Ridge Middle School, Legacy Middle School, Discovery Middle School, Roberto Clemente Middle School, and Odyssey Middle School. The colored areas are the proposed zones. Pink is Glen Ridge, yellow is Legacy, green is Discovery, purple is Clemente, and orange is Odyssey. The next slides will show you zoomed-in views of the areas proposed to be moved. From Union Park Middle School to Glen Ridge, there are 30 middle school students residing and attending Union Park Middle School recommended to be moved to Glen Ridge. From Union Park Middle School to Legacy Middle School, there are 293 students residing and attending Union Park recommended to be moved to Legacy. From Union Park to Roberto Clemente, there are 210 students residing and attending Union Park Middle School recommended to be moved to Roberto Clemente Middle School. From Legacy Middle School to Discovery Middle School, there are 104 students residing and attending Legacy recommended to be moved to Discovery. From Odyssey Middle School to Legacy Middle School, there are 199 students residing and attending Odyssey Middle School recommended to be moved to Legacy. Here is the demographic overview for each of the schools. I will give you a second to review the numbers. Here's the projection slide. I'll give you a moment to review this slide. If approved, this rezoning will commence August 2026. And this concludes our presentation for Union Park Middle School's consolidation. Dr. Vasquez.
Member Gallo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so this is another one that's in my district. And there's lots of moving parts to this one. I think the elementaries were a little bit easier because they were just a little bit more fluid and there was only a couple of schools to choose from. Where in the middle school, and I believe this is the only middle school that we're consolidating, it gets a little bit messier. So my first question is, with Glen Ridge, currently there's only 30 students that would go from Union Park to Glen Ridge Middle. How many in that zone reside that go to maybe Arbor Ridge or go to a different school that then could choose because of the zoning to go to Glen Ridge? What is that? What is the potential number of students that Glen Ridge could actually receive if everybody in that area decides to go to Glen Ridge?
137 students.
All right. Well, I'm gonna bat that over to Member Vanos because that's her school.
And
So I'm gonna let her discuss that.
two of which attend Arbor.
So I know we have the survey results, so I'd be interested, and I know that there's grandfathering and there's open enrollment, and in looking at the numbers, obviously there wouldn't be transportation, but kids could stay at the school that they're at if they're able to find the transportation. So can I ask, like, what was the reason for all the, nope,
Union Park will no longer be open. So
Well, I
there's
mean-
no grandfather for that. And
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I
Okay.
understand that. I'm talking about the other schools that we're moving kids.
Yes.
We're moving kids out of. Like, we're moving kids out of Legacy and Odyssey, and I think Roberto Clemente, right? And so, or no,
we're moving into
So what are the two schools that we're moving kids out of because of the Union Park students are coming to them?
from Legacy to Discovery, and then I believe that's we have some kids going into Odyssey, from Odyssey to Legacy.
Okay. So Legacy will be losing students and Odyssey will be losing students.
Yes.
So again, I kind of want to look at the survey. What was the reasoning behind moving them out? Were we trying to clean up feeder patterns? Can you just explain that a little bit?
So, for example, Glen Ridge, those students going into Glen Ridge would clean up the high school feeder. So those middle school students that we're moving from Union Park into Glen Ridge also feed to Winter Park. So that is cleaning up that feeder pattern. And the other options, pretty much same thing. Let's see. We're cleaning up part of the university high school feeder pattern with moving those students from Union Park into Odyssey. So or from Odyssey, sorry, to Legacy. It cleans up the high school feeder pattern.
Okay. So when we looked at it, it's just, it cleans up the feeder pattern to keep students together so that when they move on to the next school that they're all going together.
Yes.
Okay. Again, I know that we have the survey, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the community has to say. I will say that Discovery is very concerned about traffic, so I don't know if there'd be a way that we can send out our safety team to look at arrival and dismissal. It is really bad because Waterford's right across the street from Discovery, and everybody uses Woodbury and Lake Underhill as a cut through. So and where the buses come in, it's like in a neighborhood right there. It's on Lake Underhill, but it comes in, and so they've literally got to go down and do U-turns. And so I would just really like for someone just to look at the safety at Discovery to see if there's a traffic pattern we can change, or if there's anything we can do, because if you go by there in the morning or the evening, I promise you, you're going to be tearing your hair out. It's really bad on those streets, and then a lot of commuters use it as well.
Yes, Mr. Pacheco already nodded. Do you also want us to take a look at that for the Lake Pickett neighborhood, since you said the traffic there is bad as well? Where we said that the adding Solus, do you want us to take a look at that as well?
I don't think the traffic is as bad as it is over at Discovery. And not to toot my own horn, but when I went to East Lake, I got a light installed, which alleviated a lot of the traffic. Well, it was Joey Cadle. It was Joey Cadle and I, but we threw a fit until we finally got a light at Tanner and McCulloch Road, which helps. And the only thing that's really going to alleviate the traffic to get in and out of East Lake is the issue, because Tanner's gotten so much busier with college, because all the college kids live out there now, would be a light. So if you want to come out and look and see if it's viable to put a traffic light there, that would be the only thing that would alleviate the traffic for East Lake.
I was referring to going in, coming out, and what that would look like going to Columbia versus going to, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think we just were, maybe a year and a half ago, we reviewed East Lakes, because I was getting a lot of complaints about the East Lake traffic. And I don't know if it's viable for a traffic light, but that's the people turning left have the hardest time getting out of East Lake during arrival and dismissal. It gets backed up. But East Lake sits really far back, so when you look at the way the traffic pattern is, it doesn't hold up pickup, because there's just a lot of room to move about. But yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Member Vanos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to address some of the concerns that I received from constituents regarding the movement of some students from Union Park to Glenridge Middle School. And I think once everyone learned that it was only 30 students that were looking to be moved, I think most people felt relieved. I think the concern was really that the max capacity, that basically Glenridge would become overcrowded if a bunch of students moved in. So thank you for sharing that that's expected to be 30 students. And even if you said there's a maximum of 137 students in the area, but even if we, even if for some reason all of those students went in, that would basically bring Glenridge to capacity. And I think for me, that's important because, Glenridge, and I'm not sure this is true of the other schools that we're looking at right here, Glenridge is within a 5-mile radius of a, quote, low-performing school, which means that it could be a potential target for a school of hope. And so to me, filling up that school and making sure that that we are as close to capacity as we can be at Glenridge is really, really important. So I just wanted to share that constituents had emailed me, but I do think recognizing the number of students and that will not overcrowd Glenridge is really important. And that also, you also pointed out that it's keeping with the Winter Park High School feeder pattern of students that were already going to Winter Park High School. Now they'll be able to be with students in middle school, moving on to high school. So I really appreciate you looking into that and responding very quickly when people had concerns. So thank you.
Thank you. Member Gallo? Was that from prior? Go ahead.
No, this is new. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question. Will we be going over any of the survey input today, or will that be next week?
Next week, we will go over the survey input.
Okay. All right. I just want to, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, we don't have any further comments. And recommendation from Member Gallo is?
Until I see the early survey results, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Any dissension on that? No. Okay, thank you. I need to step away for just a minute. Thank
Okay, is that it? We're ready to move on. Thank you.
Chickasaw Elementary School consolidation. Chickasaw's current enrollment is 503 and school's capacity is 888, which shows that the school is more than 43% under capacity. The next slides will show maps and demographic data to help illustrate the potential impact on students, families, and schools. Red lines indicate current elementary school boundaries. Schools involved in this rezoning are Chickasaw, Inglewood, and Deerwood. The colored areas are the proposed zones. Purple is Deerwood and green is Inglewood. The next slides will show you zoomed-in views of the areas proposed to be moved. From Chickasaw Elementary to Inglewood Elementary School, there are 221 elementary students residing and attending Chickasaw Elementary School recommended to be moved to Inglewood. From Chickasaw to Deerwood, there are 181 students residing and attending Chickasaw Elementary School recommended to be moved to Deerwood. The next slide displays the demographic breakdown for each school, both before and after the rezoning. I will give you a moment to review the numbers for each school. Here's the enrollment history and long-term projections for each school involved in this rezoning. As a reminder, the top portion presents projections as status quo, and below that you will find projection numbers for each option created. Please take a moment to review the numbers, and remember, if approved, this rezoning will commence August of 2026, and this concludes our presentation for Chickasaw Elementary's consolidation.
Okay. Do we have any, we don't have any board members queued in? Oh, there we go. Yes, Member Front?
Again, not my school, but just a quick question, because I have the same question in one of my schools. The Deerwood Elementary, it looks like the capacity is 629,
Yes.
correct? And then it said the proposed rezoning, is that, okay, when it says there's the 620 to 640, do you see that in parentheses?
Yes.
So is that how many will reside or how many will end up
Attend.
attending?
Could attend.
So it could end up over capacity.
It could, based on the projections, but not all students that reside, as we know, attend schools. They're on transfers, or they opt to, remain where they are currently going.
Just a thought, I guess, if you feel, I mean, I'm not the board member, so I don't know, but just a thought.
Madam, Board Member
Yes,
Salamanca wants to speak.
Okay. Member Salamanca?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ms. Neal, for the maps. The community meeting on this one was fairly positive on the recommendation, and I have not heard as much, call it, questions or concerns from the community or parents for the Chickasaw and the proposed solution here. This area has a lot of school choice. Different charters and families have a lot of options in this part of my district. And so I'm okay with the numbers being a little bit over just because of that. And I don't think that that's going to slow down. And so I am definitely supportive of what staff proposes here.
All right, any other concerns or questions? If not, we'll move forward with the staff recommendation. Ms. Neal.
Eccleston Elementary Schools consolidation. Eccleston's current enrollment is 334 and school's capacity is 684, which shows that the school is more than 51% under capacity. The next slides will show maps and demographic data to help illustrate the potential impact on students, families, and schools. Red lines again indicate current elementary school boundaries. Schools involved in the rezoning are Eccleston Elementary School and Washington Shores Elementary School. The purple area is the new proposed zone for Washington Shores Elementary. The next slide will show you zoomed-in views of the areas proposed to be moved. From Eccleston to Washington Shores, there are 298 elementary students residing and attending. Eccleston Elementary School recommended to be moved to Washington Shores. The next slide displays the demographic breakdown for each school, both before and after the rezoning. I will give you a moment to review the numbers for each school.
If we could hold off for just a moment. Member Felder, I believe, will be joining us shortly. Is that correct? No?
She is currently detained, so
Okay.
I don't know that she's going to
Okay.
make it.
Then we'll move forward. Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. I misunderstood. Sorry for the interruption.
Next slide is the enrollment history and the 10-year projections. Please review the numbers, and if approved, this rezoning will also commence August of 2026. This concludes our presentation for Eccleston Elementary School.
Any questions or comments by board members? Have we gotten any feedback that you're aware of from Member Felder? All right. With that, we'll move forward with the recommendation. Thank you.
McCoy Elementary Schools consolidation. McCoy's current enrollment is 462 and school's capacity is 834, which shows that the school is more than 45% under capacity. The next slides will show maps and demographic data to help illustrate the potential impact on students, families, and schools. Red lines indicate current elementary school boundaries. The schools involved in this rezoning are McCoy, Shenandoah, and Ventura Elementaries. The colored areas are the proposed zones. Purple is Shenandoah, green is Ventura. The next slides will show you zoomed-in views of the areas proposed to be moved. From McCoy Elementary to Ventura, there are 254 elementary students residing and attending McCoy Elementary School recommended to be moved to Ventura. From McCoy Elementary to Shenandoah Elementary, there are 143 students residing and attending McCoy, recommended to be moved to Shenandoah. The next slide displays the demographic breakdown for each school, both before and after the rezoning, and I will give you a moment to review the numbers for each school. The historical enrollment and the 10-year projections. Please review the numbers, and if approved, this rezoning will commence August 2026. This concludes our presentation for McCoy Elementary.
Member Farrant?
Thank you. If Member Salamanca is on and would like to speak first, she definitely.
Oh, thank you. Member Salamanca, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So McCoy was been a tough one for sure. The community had a lot of concerns and a lot of questions. I think the community meetings, we've addressed a lot of these. I think one of the things I definitely would say continues to be is parents, a lot of confusion on the self-contained units, on the gifted classes, on where to go, because currently at McCoy, some of those students actually go to programs in other schools that are not either of the ones that we're rezoning into. And so I think, that's obviously some of the work we have to do after some of this process continues. But to the extent that we can also communicate to parents in either any of those situations for gifted or some of the other programs that students were leaving McCoy for, about just also the open enrollment at some of those other schools, because a lot of those schools do have open enrollment, and just giving them clarity on their options and how some of the programs operate and what they have whenever they go to school. I think that would be really helpful, because I think this is a school particularly where students and families go to other schools for different programs for a few days a week, or the self-contained units are not going to be in either of these two options as well. It sounds like some of them are going to be at Lake George. So there's a reasonable amount of understandable confusion about where and how and some of those cases are going to be treated. And so I guess my question here is just what can parents and families expect as this process goes on, are folks going to be coming into school to give them some of the options and walk them through the different schools aside from that and the programs, or what's the staff plan on making sure parents know what's happening with those unique cases?
Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Member Salamanca, for that great question. Yes, choice staff will be available and will make themselves available at the school, at the schools, any of these schools, all these schools that are being consolidated or being considered for consolidation, pardon me, to explore choices. Our OCPS has wonderful choices with our magnets and our scholastic academies and controlled open enrollment. So absolutely, we will make ourselves available. We have plans to do that. We were also at the last community meetings. We had staff at the last community meetings talking to parents, and we already have a list of names who we're reaching out to follow up to explore options, what families may be interested in. So yes, ma'am, absolutely. We will, I can't speak for the ESE piece of that, but for choice options, we will make ourselves available. We have plans to do so.
Madam Chair, I can speak
Dr.
to the
Vasquez.
ESC piece. There will be one-on-one meetings with the families once the decision has been made, and they will, at the meeting, there will be staff from the receiving school as well as the teacher from the current school to be able to discuss child's needs and the transition.
All right. Member Farrant?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my school is Shenandoah School, so this would be a receiving school for McCoy. And one question I have, I know there's a lot of new developments happening right there on like Hoffner, and I'm curious, the projections don't look as if it's going to grow. It looks more like it will kind of decrease and then maybe kind of come back up. Could you maybe speak to that? Because I've had,
I would be happy to.
yeah.
So a lot of the developments, they're not giant developments. We get a lot of, we've had a lot of small residential pieces that occur all the time, and we rely on those to help stabilize some of the enrollments. And we've had these for a number of years, and despite that, the enrollments still continue to decline. So yeah, we do include that in there, but when you have, the grade levels dropping, at 10, 20 students per grade level over the course of the last few years, that kind of offsets any type of growth we typically get, but I do include those in there. And I can give you some of the, we have all these in our database. We've got this, for example, we've got one on Hoffner that I think that you were talking about. Let me select it. And I just want to give this as an example. Hold on. Okay.
I don't remember what it's called, Conway Place or?
There's
Go
one
ahead.
called 12 Oaks Townhomes. And it's 300 townhome units. So over the course of when it gets built, and if it gets built, it might generate, based on our generation rate, 50 elementary school students. But at the same time, we have other areas where we're losing students as well. So that it might offset it some.
Okay.
And we have a lot of students residing in Shenandoah that don't go to Shenandoah as well.
Very true. Yes,
Yeah.
we have a huge charter school in that Belle Isle area that I think takes a lot of those parents are choosing that versus just the local public school. But I
Yeah.
think this will help. But I was just curious because I've had some parents reach out to me and worried that this school will be over capacity because of the new growth, but it's good to hear that it won't be over capacity, but it would be nice if it would grow a little more than it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Farrant. Member Gallo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just a quick question. In looking at the numbers, like I see Shenandoah and Ventura, it was kind of like Eastlake and Columbia, where I understand Ventura has a higher capacity than Shenandoah, but it looks like the way we're moving students isn't like an even distribution. Are we following feeder patterns? Are we trying to clean up maps? Is there a reason why it's kind of disproportionate?
Yeah, it was a feeder pattern. It aligns with Cimarron, and so students on one side of Cimarron go, which aligns with a lot of feeder patterns.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just curious because, we're all sitting up here having these conversations and we don't want to be back here having the same conversation. And so just where we can to ensure that schools are getting, the students that they need. And then I do have just some generic questions. When we're going through these type of processes where we're looking at rezoning, and I know that our ESC students get caught up in those rezones, what is the process? Because I haven't really been briefed on any of the ESC students and where they're going to go or what they're going to happen, the recent decisions. So I'm just curious, at what point will the board be kind of briefed so I have a better understanding of these units? And when we're making these ESE decisions, are we talking to the principals at those schools so that they have input? Because we are disrupting those students as well. I know that we move them around and it's not a part of this rezoning process, but those kids are getting rezoned. So I just want to ensure that as board members, we have input and that the community has input as well as the principals.
Dr. Vasquez.
Thank you. So there is not as much community input when it comes to the units because those are driven primarily by where we have first of all, it's driven by the child's IEP and their needs. Then we look at the center schools or the schools that have the units that are surrounding them or closest to them. We also look, as I mentioned before, we try not to have more than 4 units at a school. And so we have changes to the feeder patterns every year due to growth or decline. And that is, we follow the same process that we have for any of addition of our ESC units. And so I'll make sure that Wendy meets individually with board members just to share where they are. We want to ensure that all of the supports and services that that child requires are at the school that we are moving them into. And again, if the school already has 4 units, we don't want to add more units to one school than another.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I would love to have an update because this is kind of a unique situation. We've never had to do this before. We've never had to consolidate schools before. And so I am hearing from my community regarding those units. And so I would like to know, just so I can explain to them why decisions are being made or what's happening, and I can advocate on their behalf. Because I'm assuming that we won't be having the ESE discussions at the next meeting, at the rural development meeting, or will we be providing ESE information during that time?
Again, that is not our typical process for rezonings. And so we can certainly add the information as part of the slide, as part of the presentation where it shows where those students are going. But those decisions are not based on what the rezoning process is, because our hands are somewhat tied to where the resources are, where the transportation routes are set up, and we also try as much as we can to look at feeder patterns as well for units. And so we may want to have a child go to a certain middle school because the unit for that may be at this high school, even though it may not be the closest school, but it allows for them to stay in community.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And that makes sense. I think under this we could potentially have people coming to speak, especially about the VE unit at Eastlake. And so I just want to make sure that we're prepared, and I'm prepared to answer questions as they come into my inbox. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Salamanca, you're recognized.
Yeah, I also, as I brought up those questions, I think that's the area where I'm starting to get a lot more questions for McCoy in particular, right? So the units and the gifted program. And some of these students who might not have been in programs or services for the two schools are being zoned for. And so even if it's just a briefing or some understanding of what the process is going to be that we can have so we can start answering these questions, that would be really helpful, because I think that I probably will also have folks that come to speak to McCoy and the different programs that they've been under.
All right, thank you, Member Salamanca. I have one question on the demographics. So looking at the current demographics for McCoy, Shenandoah, and Ventura, the Black population is 18%, 15%, 21%. But under the proposed, Shenandoah would have 9%, and Ventura would have 21%. I obviously don't know these communities, and there may, knowing the communities, there may be a way of understanding the 9%. And I know we're out from under the desegregation order, and I know we're about community neighborhood schools, but it still troubles me to have a school that has literally less than 10% of any of our demographics. Troubles me a little. Is there, Dr. Vasquez, I'm looking at you. I don't know who to look at here, but.
Can I,
Yeah.
so the first column is the actual enrollment of 15%. The proposed is the residing. So you have transfers into the school, and that is making up the difference, or why you see a difference of what's enrolled and what's residing in the area.
So the residing is actually, still the residing is less than 10%
Yes.
in the whole zone. Okay. Member Ferrant, did you? Okay.
So
Dr.
another aspect of it may be, and Stacy, you may have to clarify for me, but remember a few years ago, not a few, I think it's been more than a few, there was a change to how we capture demographics, and so that may skew some of the numbers. So for example, I'll use Hispanic, right? Hispanic is not captured under the demographic data that we collect because you are white, and then you can indicate you're Hispanic. So when we made that change, some of the data looks differently. Am I correct in saying that, Stacy?
You are
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. I just, you all know, you've heard me say it a million times, but you know my history and my junior high school experience and going into what was, a white population that was like 3%, and the impact it had on a much more balanced. I think we were then 30%, but the impact that had on all of us at the school, both black and white, of really learning to understand each other and accepting each other and just erasing those color blinds, if you will. And so anyway, I looked at all the others, but I just kind of had to pause with 9%. So we, at this point, are moving forward with the staff's recommendation. Okay. Ms. Neal, you're recognized.
Meadowwoods Elementary Schools consolidation. Meadowwoods' current enrollment is 516, and school's capacity is 837, which shows that the school is more than 38% under capacity. The next slide will show maps and demographic data to help illustrate the potential impact on students families, and schools. Red lines indicate current elementary school boundaries. Schools involved in the rezoning are Meadowwoods, Wyndham Lakes, and Southwood. The colored areas are the proposed zones. Pink is Wyndham Lakes, and purple is Southwood. The next slides will show you zoomed-in views of the areas proposed to be moved. From Meadowwoods Elementary to Southwood Elementary, there are 253 elementary students residing and attending Meadowwoods Elementary School, recommended to be moved to Southwood. From Meadowwoods Elementary to Wyndham Lakes, there are 160 students residing and attending Meadowwoods Elementary, recommended to be moved to Wyndham Lakes. Here is the demographic overview for each of the schools. I'll give you a few to review the numbers. The next slide is the projection slide, please review the numbers. If approved, this rezoning will commence August 2026, and this concludes our presentation for Meadowwoods Elementary's consolidation.
Member Gallo? Okay, I thought that was from before. Thank you. Member Farrant?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was also, I think every one of these meetings have been extremely difficult. As board members, this is like your kind of worst nightmare to have to stand in front of parents and discuss possibly closing or consolidating their schools. I really appreciate the staff and what you guys have done to minimize movement and just kind of keep it as simple as possible. Keep the majority of kids, like a big group of them going one way and a big group going another way. The questions that I have, one of the biggest ones was if we can go back to the map and specifically the one going to Southwood. Yes. So this big red line, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the big red line in the middle of it is Orange Avenue, correct? If I'm not mistaken. Or where's, yes,
It is.
okay, this. Okay, so Orange Avenue at Weatherby, so very top and there is crazy traffic and a train there. So is there a way that we can work somehow with the county to, I've sat and watched this traffic pattern where the light will go green, but a train is going by. The train leaves, the light goes red. So now you're still stuck. And then I think the train goes by every, I don't even know how many minutes, but it's pretty frequently. That was one of the biggest concerns the staff had it was actually Southwood staff because a lot of them live in the Meadowwoods Elementary kind of area and they travel over that intersection every day to go to Southwood. And so they were saying that you really have to time yourself to get there at exactly the right time. So just a thought as we're moving forward, if there's a way for us to work with the county and try to maybe get the traffic light differently. I don't know.
Board
Dr.
Member
Vasquez?
Farrant, we will, Mr. Pacheco will add that to the list. I know exactly where you're talking about. And you're right, the light, it doesn't appear to me the times that I've been there that the traffic light and the railroad crossing are in any way aligned. So we'll go out there and take a look at it, and then we can also then reach out to, I'm not sure if that's county or city staff, but we will.
Thank you. The next question would be, okay, I know we discussed this with a different one, but again, another concern is that the Southwood Elementary would now be over capacity. Can you explain one more time how it wouldn't be over capacity? Like we're projecting that it will go, if it's 653 is capacity, and we're saying, so the 740 to 760 is how many students will reside or how many students we project to attend?
It is a projection to attend. So you want to go to the next slide? Okay, so it is a projection to attend. So that is a number, and if everyone goes, if everyone that we move does go, it will be over capacity. Now, keep in mind that area that we're moving is an area that is going to decline. So wherever we put that area is going to create a decline over the course of a number of years. So if you look at if you look at the enrollment projection for Southwood, as it progresses, it becomes below capacity.
Right. But not for like 10 years. So I think the staff's concern is, are we going to have to put in portables to help maintain that?
It's 2 years. It's like 2026, 748, 27, it drops to 707, and then 2028, 659.
So we're pretty close. So it's like maybe they just squeeze for a little bit and then, or have, yeah.
Well, additionally, some of the families that are attending Southwood are in open enrollment. So some of them may not be there. Additionally, we're working with the families that are coming from the receiving schools that may be on an open enrollment transfer as well. And so they may not all choose Southwood. We're going to work with them on best. So we've looked at that concern, and it's going to be close, but as you see 2 years out, it's actually going to help them because of the declining enrollment.
Okay. Perfect. I think that's it. Later I'd love to just talk about, I know, the full day VPK, or, where those move to, because Meadowwoods, if I'm not mistaken, Meadowwoods Elementary has 2 full-time VPKs.
Yes, we've discussed that as well. In fact, I think it was a meeting I had yesterday afternoon, and so both Dr. Brown Cannon and Ms. Concolino are working on the funding piece for the pre-K, because I believe 1 or 2 of the schools involved in all of the 7 consolidations are not Title I schools.
Correct.
And so they would only be eligible for a half-time, and so we're looking at what it would cost us to fund, even if it's temporarily for a few years, a full-day program.
That would be awesome. Thank you, because I know both schools were welcoming that and open arms. So as difficult as this is, I think, I'm happy with the map, and the community, from what I heard, was more like just cut it to a straight. Are we moving? Are we not? And I think that's more the concern of, obviously everyone wants to stay in their own home school, but at the same time, if there is going to be a change, they want to know quickly. So I appreciate everybody for all your hard work on this.
Thank you, Member Front. Member Vanos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just need to get a little better clarification when you say projection, because I thought, okay, my understanding was when we have these projection maps, you've applied your magic. Like, you've said, okay, these people reside, out of the people who reside, this is who we think will attend the school.
Correct.
But I feel like what you just said was that the projection is actually all the people who reside. So I just want to get some clarity on that.
No, to clarify, we do use, based on history, what we think will happen. But there's the assumption that all those that currently choose to attend Meadowwoods are going to currently choose to go to Southwood. We're making that assumption.
Got it.
So if that happens, it will be more closely aligned to that 740 number. But if they choose other options, they'll be much lower than that.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Right. Thank you, Member Vanos. And yeah, that does help clarify the methodology behind the projections.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you. We are in, Member Ron, I believe this is your district, right? All right. And you're in support of the staff recommendation? Okay. And we'll move that forward. Member Felder. Hi. We're gonna take up Orla Vista, but we did Eccleston earlier, and the consensus was to move forward with the staff recommendation. If you want us to revisit that, let me know.
I just wanted to say something.
Please.
I apologize for, there was an extreme mix-up because I explained that I needed to get back here at 11.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't
No.
understand that, but nevertheless, I said, I got a board meeting. But I
You're-
know
you're
that
fine. You're
for
fine.
the most part that we, moving forward, but we, as a board, I want my constituents to know that we really have exhausted every means possible, and that as Member Farrat and Chair Jacobs, you all have reiterated, none of us want our schools. It's hard to stand in front of parents and community people, especially if it's a legacy school like Eccleston is, to say we have to consolidate. But when you are robbing Peter to pay Paul, excuse my metaphor, but that's the best way I can explain this. I was at an NAACP meeting last night and did the same, explained the same thing, and tried to help them understand that the fight is going to have to be in Tallahassee. They're going to have the holy boldness to fight and say that more money needs to be put in public education. The fact that this district for years has been able to keep schools that have been underpopulated funded, and it has not been a problem. Why? Because we've had the money. But now that we don't, it's just not fair to those schools that have 900 or 1,200. We have to pull from them to help supplement those with the 200 or 300. Then you still live in 300 without the need, the financial help. So, of course, I don't want it to close. I don't ever want it to close. I'm gonna always say no. But I do understand that we're in a conundrum that we have to work out. And my hope is that once the decision has been discussed and made, that we control what we do with the building. That's my concern. We must control, because it still belongs to OCPS. We must control what we do with it. And also, my concern is with teachers, and the superintendent has talked with me over and over again about my concern about where they're going to go and will they have a job, those kinds of things. And I know other board members, I know you guys are thinking the same thing too. So I just wanted to express that thought for those of you that are listening, to understand that this is I think this is probably one of the most difficult decisions I may have to make as a board member. Shutting down a school, because we're educators. It seems like an oxymoron to shut down a school. But I believe that with prayer and great discussion, we will do what we can to make the best for our communities. And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on to Orla Vista.
Orla Vista Elementary Schools consolidation. Orla Vista's current enrollment is 435 and school's capacity is 735, which shows that the school is more than 40% under capacity. The next slides will show maps and demographic data to help illustrate the potential impact on students, families, and schools. Red lines indicate current elementary school boundaries. Schools involved in this rezoning are Orla Vista, Oak Hill, Ivy Lane, and Eagles Nest elementary schools. The colored areas are the proposed zones. Yellow is Oak Hill, pink is Ivy Lane, green is Eagles Nest. The next slides will show you zoomed-in views of the areas proposed to be moved. From Orla Vista Elementary to Ivy Lane, there are 189 elementary students residing and attending Orla Vista Elementary School recommended to be moved to Ivy Lane. From Orla Vista to Oak Hill, there are 145 students residing and attending Orla Vista's elementary school recommended to be moved to Oak Hill. From Orla Vista to Eagles Nest, there are 67 students residing and attending Orla Vista Elementary School recommended to be moved to Eagles Nest. Here is the demographic overview for each of the schools. I'll give you a moment to review the numbers. The projection slide. If approved, this rezoning will commence August of 2026. This concludes our presentation for Orla Vista Elementary Schools consolidation. Dr. Vasquez.
All right, Member Felder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Again, when I'm looking again, and I have talked with this diligently working committee 4 times. We have met to talk about the consolidation and the workout plan. Even when I discussed about moving, instead of moving them to Eagles Nest or moving them to Eccleston, then you'll have 3 schools that would be under capacity, even with that movement, if I did that. So rather than have 3 under, maybe 1 or 2 or none, if we could do something. Because, again, as I explained to members of my constituency, is that my district for a while has been underpopulated. And it still is for the most part. But the district has had the money to still give and to do what we needed to do. But when the funds are being cut in such a drastic measure, it's difficult again. And I'm hoping that those of you that are listening and are tuning in, that you'll come to the board meeting again for the discussion and share your thoughts. But the fight is in Tallahassee. It is in Tallahassee about public school funding. And after talking and looking at all of the scenarios, Ms. Neal and company, I understand that this is something that has to happen. I'm not happy at all. My concern, and I know probably other board members, about, again, salaries for teachers that have to be transferred. And the good thing about the Orla Vista and at Eccleston, those schools that we're looking at to bring children there, administration was there to answer any questions for those parents and community members that had real concerns about this consolidation. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Member Felder, thank you. And yeah, I'm glad that the administration was there. I think that's so helpful. It sends an important message. All right, then we have direction to move forward with staff recommendation. Dr. Vasquez, anything further?
No, I want to thank the board. I also want to thank staff. This has really been a very difficult time for all of us. We never dreamed we would be consolidating schools, and so I appreciate your engagement. I appreciate how you have brought us and participated in all of the community gatherings and listened to them and helped us also communicate the why behind this very difficult decision. So we will be back next week.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. And as the oldest member by far on this board, well, no, I'm sorry, Member Felder, you and I share that distinction. But I remember vividly when Hunters Creek learned that the school site they thought was going to be an elementary school went to Meadowwoods. And oh my gosh, it was a fight over who was going to get that elementary school. And here we are having to close that school. And Orla Vista, when they rebuilt Orla Vista, I was there for the grand opening of the new Orla Vista Elementary School, and the enthusiasm and the pride. And the enthusiasm and pride for public education is still there in Orla Vista. It's just kind of blows my mind that we are where we are. And I know you all have, I'm sure, gotten the same emails I've gotten, one or two saying, it seems pretty clear it's all about the money, it's not about the kids. And boy, that hurt, and it shows that there's still a lack of awareness that you have to have money to operate schools, and we do not have enough. And, clearly we are not in the business of trying to make money, and we have no profit, and there's no personal gain in this organization. The gain is to our students, and the need is for our teachers and for our professional support staff in particular to be able to make enough to afford to live in this community and to give so generously of their time and their talent and their heart. And so for those reasons, yes, it is a funding issue, as Member Felder so well pointed out. Well, with that, we will conclude our meeting. Oh, I am sorry, we're lit up here. Member Felder, you're finished. Member Ferrand?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know we're kind of wrapping up, I guess. I was kind of hoping we would be talking maybe too about ideas and thoughts on how we can avoid this in the future, what we can do. Is that going to happen at a different time, or?
In terms of promoting?
Like continuing to consolidate, like how do we put a stop to this and help? Is that something we're talking about at a different time, or can we discuss that now?
Dr. Vasquez?
I'd be happy to schedule a work session on this. I know we've had lots of conversation. We've talked about this at the legislative committee. We've talked about it during budget meetings. I believe we also talked a little bit about it at one or two board meetings when we talked about the work with CASA, but absolutely we could schedule a work session. I wasn't going to say this, but we're projected, I believe, for another 5,000 fewer students next year. And so while I wish I could sit up here and say this is the last of our consolidations, I'm afraid that that would be an untrue statement. And so we will put it on the books.
Thank you. I really would like to discuss it more, and really, in the open forum like this, because I think a lot of the parents now are tuning in, wanting to know, understanding a little more. I think we do have to understand too, as a board, this isn't, I know some, Member Felder, you had mentioned that it's about, robbing Peter to pay Paul, but really it's about focusing on the kids. And right now, if we don't have a student in our school, we don't get the funding for that student. So there is a lack of funding, but not because the state isn't giving it to us. It's because the students aren't in our schools, if that makes sense. And so that's the way I'm seeing it. The state could fund us more But if we don't have the students in the schools to fund it, that causes a little bit of angst. You can go ahead.
Dr. Vasquez?
I think a work session is great. I disagree with part of your statement, because part of that is true that we do not have the students, but we also know that there have been dollars taken away from public schools in order to fund some of the choice programs. And so we'll make sure to include that in the presentation.
Yeah, I would love to know more about that, because from what I see, the dollars that are moving, when we say there's dollars moving into choice programs, are we talking about like the scholarship?
That's part of it, but I'll give you one very prime example. We have to transport children that are over 2 miles. The state only gives us 50% of those dollars.
Yes, so that would be an example of where the state could definitely fund us more, absolutely.
I'll give you another example. The state used to give us line items for different support services and interventions that we're required to provide in the form of SAI dollars, maybe SRI dollars. Those line items were eliminated, and then we were told those dollars were rolled into the base student allocation. But if you do the math, it doesn't add up. And so there have been different pots of money that have been chipped away in order to provide dollars for some of the choice programs. And I understand they don't have all of the dollars needed to be able to provide that choice, but it's happening on the backs of public schools, limiting then some of what we're able to provide. And then we also have a very long list of unfunded mandates that we can also bring to this work session. Again, we are required to provide those services, but we're not funded for them.
Perfect. Well, one thing that I would like to say is that I think as school board members, and myself as a school board member, I want to make sure that we're always, when we're talking with Tallahassee, we're talking with them in the fact, like bringing facts just like that, to say we're underfunded in transportation. We really need to be fully funded in transportation. We're underfunded in these areas. But the one thing I don't like is the constant rhetoric that parents shouldn't make choices or choose other options besides public schools because it's stealing money from the public schools. Because really, parents have that right to choose where they want to send their schools. And as a board member, I want to make sure that our schools are the best option for them. So for that reason, I'd love to, eventually in a work session, some of the things that I've thought of would be the middle schools. Tons of parents talk to me about how they don't want to send their kids to our public middle schools because they're huge and they would rather their middle schoolers be in a smaller school. So those are some things that as we're moving forward, how can we branch out, maybe think differently, be a little more innovative with those middle schoolers to create either it's the K-8s or smaller cohorts of students so that parents feel more confident going into the middle school years. And then, I also wanted to share in Acceleration East is one of my schools. Maybe this is for a different discussion, but I feel like I need to say it now just so that at least it's out there. But they've really been advocating. I know there's talks of maybe moving them into a facility that's an elementary school. I would love to see them be in a facility more like a Union Park Middle, something like that, or one of the middle schools, different facility where they would have the gymnasium. They would have some of the facilities that would benefit their students more, and maybe even have some sort of partnership where the Union Park Middle School students who are zoned for there, if they wanted to, could we create a 6th through 12th grade in the Acceleration East? It's a small school, they wear uniforms, it's kind of, I feel like a lot of the parents in that area would love that type of school. So something to just think about. And I think really the key here, though, is to always be focused on how can we ensure that our schools are, we're doing the best that we can. And I think by consolidating, that is one area where we're making sure that now those schools that are receiving the extra students, they're now seeing that they can provide more services and provide more, exceptional education with the funding because those students will be enrolled in their school. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Member Ferrant. Member Vanos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do appreciate Member Ferrant's suggestion to have a further work session to talk about some of these issues. I think that is really important. I did want to address a couple of parts of that. I mean, I think it would be easy to say, let's take choice out of it. But the reality is when you have $211 million of education money that could be coming to support our students and is going out to support students who are going to private, unaccountable schools, that is an issue. And no one is against parent choice. I mean, every parent should be able to choose where they want their child to go to school. We're just saying that when you're using taxpayer money to go to these private schools, that's the issue. But even if we take choice out of it, I did want to comment, on our platform, on the Florida School Board Association platform, when we go talk to legislators, always transportation funding is on there. Always safe school allocation is on there. Always increasing the BSA is on there. Always, there's usually a part about keeping up with the consumer price index. So those pieces are always on there, and they are always brought up in the legislature, and they are basically always ignored. So it's not that people haven't tried to do that. They have tried to do it, and those funding pieces are not a priority for our legislature. I also wanted to just, though, going back to the idea of having a work session, I think it is important, as I've gone to some of the community meetings, it does worry me when community members and teachers and support staff say things like, our input doesn't really matter, you've already made your decision, and you're sort of checking the boxes. That doesn't feel good to me, and I hope that in the future, as we may have to have these conversations, that we are going out, all of us are going out to our schools that maybe are under-enrolled, and ensuring that parents and teachers and staff understand what that means and what those implications are. And I know I've talked to the superintendent about this, and she shared that. I think, going forward, principals are understanding that they do need to be communicating that with their school community as we go on, so that, it really does bother me when community members feel like their input isn't important, because I really value what our community says, and I can understand why they feel that way in this process. Again, I know that these conversations were accelerated because of the Schools of Hope and the notices that we received and needing to make decisions quickly. And I would also point out that could have been on purpose, to sort of make it seem as though we're not listening to our community because we had to rush through these decisions. But I'll just say that I also do think we can do a more proactive job in speaking with our community. So I welcome the idea to have work sessions and be educating earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vanos. Member Salamanca?
That's actually me. That was actually me. It's fine. It's because I'm sitting in her seat.
I'm
Yeah. It's okay. No, it's fine. And Member Vanos said pretty much what I was going to say, except that I was going to add that we are, many of us, Member Felder, Member Douglas, Member Vanos, Member Gallo, and myself are all going to Tallahassee tomorrow, some today, but tomorrow, to speak with all of our legislators on Thursday. We go every year with FSBA to this week. The Florida School Boards Association has all the school districts across the state of Florida compounding onto Tallahassee to meet with their legislators for this very reason. So we are communicating, and when we communicate with Tallahassee, as Member Vanos said, it is not, anti-voucher, anti-school choice. It is, this is where we're underfunded. Transportation is a great example. 50, if we're lucky, it's 50%. It's actually more like 40% that we're funded every year. So when we have to keep pulling from the savings account, or from other areas to pay these bills that we have to pay, we run out. And that's what's happening now. There's no more extra money to supplement these schools. And if we didn't have to keep, as Member Felder said, if we didn't have to keep supplementing here, supplementing there, paying this mandate when we're not funded properly and we're not funded properly here, there would be enough money. So we all go to Tallahassee and share with our legislators consistently, some of us more than just once a year. But we're leaving to do that tomorrow. So I wanted to share that. Second of all, I agree that was the next request I was going to make, was that we can look at this next level. You know, maybe you've got the ones that are in consolidation now, then look at the next level, the ones that are next up to start looking at, and start those conversations now, because you will hear, I know I've heard some of the parents say, if we had known, maybe we would even have gone out into the community and talked to other parents. So, and tried to talk them into coming back to our schools. So I really want to strongly encourage us to start those conversations now where we can, and see if we can possibly make a difference for some of those schools. That's it. Thank you. Oh, I did just want to say one more thing. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to tell the other board members that are going through this right now, I did not have one on this list. I'm really impressed by the board members' advocacy, their compassion for their communities. I think they're so tightly woven into their communities and into their schools, and it's really great to see. So I'm proud of you guys. This is difficult and it's challenging, but I think everyone's doing the best they can.
Well said, Member Burden. I concur with you 100%. Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Member Byrd, for this has been hard, and it's been hard on the board, but it's been so much harder on our communities and on our staff. I've said it many times. I said it at community meetings. We're truly breaking up school work families, and some of these have worked together for decades. We're also breaking up friendships. Not everybody's going to go to the same school. And in middle school, when you have a core group of friends and all of a sudden you're going to a school and those friends aren't there, that's rough. And so for every parent that's held their kid crying because they didn't want to leave their friends, I understand. I have 2 kids. I totally get how hard middle school is, and it breaks my heart for them. So we wouldn't be doing this if this absolutely wasn't absolutely necessary in order for us to provide high quality education for all students, because at the end of the day, our job is to educate students and to provide that high quality education, and we can't do it when resources are depleted or spread too thin because of under-enrolled schools. And we do have a lot of unfunded mandates, and the funding is disproportionate for traditional public schools than even for charter public schools or private schools or homeschools or vouchers. We have to do a lot of things that other schools don't. The McKinney-Vento, for example, we spend $30 million transferring or transporting homeless students to their home schools. Should we do that? Is it the right thing to do? Absolutely it is. But that's $30 million that no one else has to spend. We don't get funding for that. We don't get funding to go across state lines to pick up that kid. We don't get funding when we have to deal with homeschool students. We get zero funding. We have 3 people in our choice office that does nothing but deal with homeschool students. And keep in mind, we've gone from 3,000 to 9,000 students. And we pay for that. We don't get any money for that. We have to support those kids, and Tallahassee provides zero funding for us to support those employees or that department. And while we're lucky here in Orange County, there's other counties that have a part-time person in their homeschool office. And it's really to the detriment of kids, because I know a lot of people in Florida virtual schools that cannot get kids the help they need because there's not enough guardrails in place in homeschooling. And it's not a dig on homeschooling. Homeschoolers do it very well. It's more of an oversight from the districts. They don't have the money for the oversight. Why? because it's not funded. And I could go on and on and on. If it was truly a fair marketplace, if it was truly fair where we were comparing apples to apples, where traditional public schools, charter public schools, taxpayer-funded vouchers were all treated equally and not differently, and funded to the level that was appropriate for the services that we provide, because we provide a lot of students to resources and services to ESC students that aren't fully funded either, that they don't have to provide. So if it was really equal and we were funded appropriately for what we provide, we wouldn't be here. And yes, that's on Tallahassee. That's absolutely on Tallahassee, because we've had these conversations. We've been up in Tallahassee. We've been begging. We've been giving statistics. We've been giving facts, not opinions, but facts. And yet here we are in Orange County, and we're closing 7 schools. So yeah, I'm a little angry. I'm sorry, I'm angry. I wish we didn't have to do this. I wish that it was a more of a fair process. And I really wish, because I support choice. I really wholeheartedly support choice. But I'm getting very fed up with the legislators that have to put down public schools to bring every other entity up. We are not failing public schools. We are not failing children. We are not failing schools. And yet that's their rhetoric. Every time you talk to them, well, we don't want those institutions are failing. Just the terms they even use for public schools is derogatory and offensive. So yeah, I support school choice, but why can't we lift all up at the same time? Why can't we lift up and fund public schools while we're giving choice to parents who want it? We can do both at the same time. They just choose not to. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gallo. Member Felder.
Member Gallo. Yes, I concur. However, some of the statements that, yes, I agree with Member Farrant in that we probably do need a work session, but I respectfully disagree with the fact that we are not holding Tallahassee accountable. When I said robbing Peter to pay Paul, we are, because we don't have the funding. And as so eloquently Member Byrd said about our traveling to Tallahassee, not just one time, but on several occasions that we have been on this board, to go to Tallahassee and talk to the legislators that handle transportation, and to tell them, and it's been a continual rhetoric on our part, we need more money. And so when I met with some group of members of my constituency on last night, I went to the meeting, and since this is a democracy, and we do have the right to protest, and the right to ask questions, and to right to fight for what we believe, I said to them, as constituents, as parents, as community people, these people who sit in Tallahassee, they represent you. Whether you voted for them or not, they still represent you. And you have the right to request and ask them to consider your desire, what you would like in terms of the vote. You have that right. And Voltaire, the French philosopher, said something wonderful. He said, I might not agree with what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. His name is Voltaire, French philosopher. And I stand on that premise. And I will say it again and again and again. When you see things are not quite right, those of you that are listening and tuning in, you must fight for what you believe. Public education has been around for over 150 plus years. And we need funding. That's something that we need. And I'm just so happy that there are members on this board who understand where the real fight is. I appreciate that. You understand where the real fight is. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Felder. Member Douglas.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to say that it really breaks my heart to see that our schools are closing. Truly, I have taught at Union Park and to middle schools, and to see that the school is closing, it really saddens me. And I don't believe any of us in here are against parents choosing the type of school for their kids. They can, okay? I mean, we have the freedom to do so. However, not on the back of public school, not on the back of our kids. These are kids. We're taking money out of their education to give it to somebody else. We have a lot of kids that need all these programs, need to be competitive in the workforce, just like any other kids. Okay, and it's not fair to say that, we're not giving them, all the program they need and we are failing them. That it's definitely not true. Everybody can see the effort that public school is doing to give all options to our students, vocational, any other colleges. They can go wherever they want to go, and we want to prepare them for whatever choice they need, they want to go to, they want to take. Anyway, I'm a little bit emotional about this because it really does break my heart to see what's going on right now. And it's not because we're not giving those kids what they need. It's because they're taking the money from those kids, period. All right. Any other thing I just want to say, just like Member Bird, I do not have any schools in my district that are closing, but I just want to say, kudos to all the members here that are really, really helping your district and fighting for them. And I do appreciate what you do. I really, really do. And I also want to say the last thing is that, yes, we need to involve our principals, our parents in making those decisions because their voices, will help us to actually make our decision. And I thank you so much for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Douglas. I want to comment, Member Front, on your suggestion and your comments. I know not long after I got on the board, I kept hearing about how we were losing funding because kids were leaving. And similar to you, I was thinking, but the dollars follow the kids. So if the kids leave, the funding leaves, but so does our cost. And so I hear where you're coming from entirely. But the more I understood about the equity issue between what we have to pay for and what we have to provide versus what whether it's charter or private schools, what their obligation is for the same amount of money, it started to become more clear. And then looking at, regardless, even if the playing field in terms of what we had to provide and how much we had was the same, we still have the issue of not keeping up with the cost of living, which translates, given the vast majority of our dollars are spent on salaries, translates into our teachers, our professional support staff, not being able to keep up with the cost of living. So I think it's going to be worthwhile to have that, but I think the one takeaway I have is that your perception, my perception initially, and probably a lot of the people that hear this, their perception is the same, but it's not fully accurate. Well, it's not accurate because it doesn't fully explain the situation. It's complicated, and I think a work session is a great way for us to have that conversation. I just wish we could get more people to tune in, because as board members have mentioned, too few of the people who make decisions understand all of those nuts and bolts. And spending some time in Tallahassee, you quickly realize that while they should, to get down in the weeds on everything is really, really difficult. But if there's ever anything worthwhile to get down in the weeds, it's kids. And I think every legislator who makes a decision has an obligation to understand the causes and the consequences. So I look forward to it. I think it's going to be, helpful for all of us. And I think, again, you've raised an issue that I think is indicative of the general lack of understanding, which I don't think is a reflection on board members when they're in Tallahassee, because they really are communicating in great detail. but the broader issue of communication is only so good as the receiver understands it. So with that, Member Ferrant, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask one last question that was asked at the community meeting. Some of the folks that were like art, music, teachers like that were asking what will happen to the equipment that is currently at the schools that are, that would be closing. And could the schools that are receiving students be able to go in and depending on how many students they would be receiving, could they receive some of those, the instruments and the different equipment that would be in those schools?
That's a great question posed. Yes, the idea would be that the assets at the school, those that are able to be redistributed, would be redistributed first to the schools receiving the students, and then we would look at other schools that may have a need and be able to repurpose those as well. Great question.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm excited to share that with those teachers. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the comments. And I look forward to the work session where we can continue discussing this and seeing how we can, think creatively moving forward and to really help our parents want to choose our public schools. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Member Front. Any closing comments? All right. And thank you, team, for great job. A lot of work that went into this throughout the last several months and year, actually. And we appreciate it. With that, the meeting is now adjourned. And now for a personal comment. Those of you who know my husband knows that he loves to bake. And so he's branched into a new line. He's decided he's going to take on cheesecake. No, bread, if he touches bread is mine. If he touches bread, it could be the end.